Well, hello, and welcome to my latest video. No Time to Die. Yes, I finally got around to seeing it. What's it like? Is it any good? Should you spend your money? Stick around and you'll find out. Now, I'm in the new studio. Yes, Julian has set up a movie review studio, especially for his movie reviews and possibly for some other videos. And I may even get round to wearing the same new, well not new, but I don't think you've seen it before, t-shirt. So if I'm wearing this t-shirt, you'll know that I'm doing a movie review, although I probably won't remember all that stuff. So first things first, where did I see it? I saw it at the Dulwich Picture House. And who did I see it with? I didn't see it with anybody because my favourite movie buddy, my son Joel, is at university and he went to see it a few days ago with his mate. So I went on my Todd. Yes, I sat there yesterday afternoon with all the other old folk and we sat through quite a few hours, we'll get to that in a moment, of the latest, possibly the last, who will know, James Bond film. So I want to do my review in a kind of good and a bad. So let's start with the good, shall we? Well, there's quite a few pretty decent set pieces. I mean, they're mostly car chases, and we've seen quite a lot of car chases before, and there's quite a lot of shooting and banging set pieces, but they're quite well done. Got no complaints about that. In fact, I'd say they're quite satisfactory. It's got a coherent story, which is not something you can say about most James Bond films. And do you remember the second, I think it was the second Jaws film, the tagline was "This time it's personal." Not only is it a coherent story, but it's a story that draws in the personal elements of Bond and his past. Now, I have seen the other films. I'm not sure if I saw the last one. Was that Skyfall or was that the other one? And it's not always been a very coherent story, and it's not always been particularly personal, but this is personal to Bond and the rest of his extended network, and I think it's all the better for it. The ending, I'm not going to give any spoilers on this, but let me just say, you may have seen lots of reviews of this. I have not watched any reviews, and I don't read any reviews before I do my own. I was surprised, and I'll say no more than that, at the ending. There's quite a few film references, and there's quite a few references to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I thought was quite interesting because that is widely regarded as one of the weakest films and certainly one of the weakest Bonds. Poor old George Lazenby, an Australian model who was roped in to the show when Sean Connery first said he didn't want to do it anymore. But anyway, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and there are quite a few other Bond films that are referenced in quite a clever and occasionally a witty way. It's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. It's pretty much edge of the seat stuff. There's a few moments. What was it like? I was shocked. Yes, I was shocked. There's a running joke through it about 007, and 007, i.e. James Bond, has retired, so they've recruited a new agent that got her through The Guardian, I suspect, and she was given the number 007. Would that happen in real life? I'm not sure it would happen in real life, but then it's James Bond real life, who can say? Another good thing about it is Hugh Dennis. Yes, remember him from all those panel games, and Shappy Corsandi. Yes, remember her from all those comedy panel games. They're both in it, fairly minor parts, and they both get killed. So there is a God after all, and we can be grateful for small mercies. And the film is directed by, I'm going to have to read this, Kerry Joji Fukunaga, who I thought I'd heard of before, and I thought, is he the guy who directed Parasite? And then I had to look him up. I checked this on IMDb, and no, of course, but he is the guy who directed and executive produced True Detective, which I thought was really good. I think it's six episodes, 6 or 8 episodes, something like that. I'm sure you can still catch it. It's a few years old now, and I have a feeling they're doing another series. So he has made some other films which I'm not familiar with. So I'm not familiar with his oeuvre, but he directs with style, with panache, with skill. Well, they all direct with skill, don't they? They wouldn't get the gig otherwise. But he does a good job. He does a good job. In terms of the script, a lot of people I think have made great play of the fact that Phoebe Waller-Bridge has been involved in the script. I got to say, I'll be honest here, I'm not familiar with her work. I know I ought to be, but I've never watched any of her stuff. I've never seen Fleabag. And if she's got particular additions to the script that spice them up, I've got to say I didn't notice them. It's not a bad script. There's some witty lines in it, but I didn't see anything that kind of stands out. Do you remember when they roped in Quentin Tarantino for that Russian submarine film, and you could tell Tarantino's additions to the film, but I can't tell what Phoebe Waller-Bridge has contributed to this film. And if that is down to my own ignorance, then please don't leave a comment saying you're just a fucking idiot, Julian, which people often do on my movie reviews, often with justification, but on this particular case, I'm not sure. So those are the good, all right? I'm going to get to the end about my overall impressions of the film, but just let me just focus on the bad. And as always, this is my personal take on the bad. You may have a completely different view, and if you comment on my movie reviews or anything to go by, you almost certainly will have a different view of mine anyway. The titles, oh come on, you know, haven't we seen enough of the James Bond title sequences? I know they kind of feel maybe they have to do it each time so that you know it's a James Bond film, but ditch this silly title sequence. It's amateurish. It looks studenty. It's shit. The theme song by Billy, is it Billy? Billie Eilish. Never heard of him. A bit of an in-joke there. Yeah, I thought the theme song was rubbish. I'm sorry. Maybe Billie Eilish is a great pop star. Maybe he'll go on to do better things. That's enough of that joke, Julian. But I couldn't see it. I thought it was rubbish. Remy Malek. Do you remember, famous, at least to me, for playing Freddie Mercury in that Queen film, which I actually thought was pretty good, I've got to say, Bohemian Rhapsody. And he's in this and he plays the villain. Now, there are two particular things that are wrong. First of all, he's got a facial disfigurement. Now, why is it? Right? Why is it that all baddies, all villains in films, well, not all of them, but lots of them, seem to have some kind of facial disfigurement, some kind of disability? It's almost like they're saying, you know, people who have a facial disfigurement or a disability grow up to hate the world and therefore they want to kill everybody in it, and that's why they become a Bond villain. And I'm uneasy with that link. I mean, it may well be true. I mean, who am I to say? It may well be true, but I'm just a little bit uneasy about it. Why couldn't he be a baddie with a kind of normal, and I'm using the word normal in quotation marks, you know, normal skin? Why does he have to have, you know, bad acne? Why does he have to appear as a kind of advert for what is it, Exoderm or Dermospot or spot the spot disappearing cream? I would prefer not to have happened. The second thing, of course, about it is you do keep thinking there's going to be a piano in the set, and he's going to turn round and he's suddenly going to start, I see a little silhouette of a man, Scaramouche, Scaramouche, do the fandango. And of course, those of you who are big students of the James Bond films will know that not Scaramouche, but Scaramanga was the baddie in one of the other. Was it The Man with the Golden Gun? I'm not quite sure. What else is wrong with the film? It's too long. It's too bloody long. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes. And a film has got it. Now, I know. Okay. I made a film about my cycle ride from Land's End to John O'Groats, linked to it up there if you haven't seen it, which is just over 2 hours long. So you think, you know, you're going to leave a comment down below, Julian, saying if you think you can criticise a James Bond film for being 2 hours and 40 minutes long when you made a 2 hour long film about your cycle ride. Well, yes, and you may well have a point, but it's too bloody long and there are bits in it that you just cut them out, they're not needed. Christoph Waltz, who is sadly wasted, brilliant actor and sadly wasted. He plays the other villain. He plays Blofeld in a kind of nod to Silence of the Lambs because he's in Belmarsh, and Bond goes to see him, and Blofeld is in a kind of moving cage, so he kind of moves down a corridor, very much like that scene from Silence of the Lambs. So there's quite a few nods to other films in this. Anyway, I thought. He's just not in it for long enough, and maybe that's a nod to previous films, who knows. But It's a 12A, and as I always say about a 12A, the trouble with a 12A film is that lots of people get killed, but nobody gets hurt. And when I say lots of people get killed, they are killed in their hundreds, that literally hundreds, and you have no idea that. I mean, they have who is it? Ben Whishaw as Q, who's always inventing these ridiculous gadgets. But the one gadget which he's clearly invented that nobody seems to comment on is a gun that has an endless supply of bullets. Because James Bond manages to kill about 50 or 60 people, and then he reloads and then kills another 50 or 60. And then the other 007, the female 007, because there's a sequence that takes place in Cuba. Well, why not? It's a nice location, where all kinds of people get shot, and they just go a bit mad. It's like one of those US mass shootings. And you think, come on, I don't need a nod to that, guys. So that, the 12A thing, and Anna de Armas is in it. She plays a kind of assistant James Bond for a short time in a very slit skirt and a very low cut dress, but not too low cut because it is, after all, just a 12A. She's okay in it, actually. She has one good line. He says to her, "How long have you been doing this?" And she says 3 weeks or something, which I thought was funny anyway. Maybe that's one of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's contributions to the film. Who knows? There's also quite a few of the old Errol Flynn with one bound he was free. There's one sequence where Bond is captured by one of the baddies, and he's in a boat, and the boat is blown up and sinks to the bottom of the sea, and James Bond is trapped in the hold, and there's there's one of those big wheels that's locked him in, along with what's his name, Felix Leiter, the CIA man. And then suddenly he's free, and he's floating on the water, and he's managed to find a life raft. And then the next thing you know is he's back in London meeting up with M and Q. M is played by Ralph Fiennes, and Q is played by Ben Whishaw. And I'm sorry to say, it's time to retire these two. It's just this old kind of... and it's not really a nod to the old Bond films. I just think it's a nod to this Brexit stuff. These kind of clubbable members of the establishment who are in charge of everything. And I think it's time they moved on from that. If they can introduce some black females, which they have done, and they've introduced black females in big parts, which they have done, and black males in big parts, why don't they go the rest of the step? Why don't they make the new M? Get rid of Ralph Fiennes. It's boring. Get a new M. Get a young M, get an ethnically diverse M, get some diversity into the rest of the cast, as opposed to in those kind of secondary roles. It's portentous, right? I even had to look that up in the dictionary. It's portentous. It's overblown. It thinks it's more important than it really is. It's not a bad film, but it's not a great film. And my final criticism, I suppose, of the film is about Daniel Craig himself. And I was watching the film, and I've seen some of his other films, and I was trying to think what it was about Daniel Craig that I'm not particularly keen on. And then I put my finger on it. He lacks charm. Right? Now, Sean Connery, whatever you say about Sean Connery, and I really like Sean Connery in the Bond films, he had charm. Roger Moore even had a certain charm. I mean, okay, they were kind of pastiche, they were parodies of the Bond films, and there was that kind of period in the 70s when they all got a bit silly. But at least Roger Moore had a bit of charm. Timothy Dalton, he didn't have any charm. George Lazenby, actually, I think he did have some charm. Pierce Brosnan, he didn't really have any charm. And Daniel Craig doesn't have any charm. I mean, he's a tough guy. He's got muscles. He's got a broken nose. He's got, he looks like your idea of a secret agent, I suppose. And his acting, I wouldn't say his acting is wooden, because he's not really called upon to do very much. There's a few facial expressions, but he's just a kind of charmless character. I find him quite unsympathetic, actually. And so you want to know what is, okay, Julian, we've heard what's bad, we've heard what's good, but what did you actually think about it? What they said to Mrs. Lincoln, apart from that, what did you think about the play? So, what did I think about that? I enjoyed it. I've got to be honest. My son said to me, "You're going to hate it, Dad." He said, "You're going to hate it. I'm looking forward to the review." And I was going in, and I had my notebook to jot down all the things that I thought were absolute shite about the film. I didn't think it was shite at all, actually. I think, what the hell? Go to the movies. Go and see No Time to Die. It's good. It's enjoyable. It's fun. Daniel Craig lacks charm. It's too long. The theme song is rubbish. The title sequence goes on forever, etc., etc. But Kerry Joji Fukunaga, anyway, has done a good job. He's done a really good job. Is it the best Bond film? I'm of an age, I suppose, when I look back to those early Bond films, From Russia with Love, Dr. No, Thunderball. I'm just not sure you can beat those films. They were a different film in a different time scale. It was a different world. This film sort of reflects a different world, and it sort of doesn't. It harks back to an earlier time, but not necessarily in a good way. Is there going to be a James Bond film? I say, or my view, and I know people aren't really interested in what Julian thinks, but I say no, end it. End it there. It's done. It's finished. You've had a good run. It was a decent franchise. Everybody made pots of money. Daniel Craig doesn't want to do it anymore. All this stuff about who's going to be the next James Bond. Nobody is going to be the next James Bond, because there isn't going to be another Bond film. Take it from me. But if you want to go and see a decent movie, and it's more than a decent movie, it's a good movie and it's an enjoyable movie, and it's a 12A, so take your kids and your Uncle Nigel and anybody else. And thanks for watching. See you next time.